it's Mal. Welcome back to the No Mom Podcast. Today, I am super duper excited for the guest that we have on. Today, we have on Angela Cervantes, the author of both Raquel and Maritza's books. I am freaking out about this episode. I'm super duper excited to have her on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about the behind-the-scenes aspects of writing both Raquel's and Maritza's book, as well as getting to know Angela, what made her want to become an author. I feel without further ado, since I'm very excited, like I mentioned, let's get this podcast episode started with. What made you want to become an author?
That's a great question. What made me want to become an author was my love for reading. So when I was a little girl, and this love for the desire to be an author hit me very early in my life. I recall being as young as 9 years old when I decided that there was only one thing in the whole entire world I wanted to be, and that was someone who wrote books and went out and signed books and talked about books. And that was pretty much propelled from my own love for books. I loved all the books. And I was one of those kids who read every book on the shelf. You know, I read Charlotte's Web 5-10 times, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis a dozen times, Wrinkle in Time 100 times, I feel like, in my lifetime. I was just such a big avid reader. And then what made me really want to become a writer, that try to turn that reader into a writer mindset, was that one day, and I remember this specifically in 5th grade because I remember Sister Judy was my teacher. She told me I'd read all the books in the 5th grade library and that she was going to find me a new book. And that was really cool. And I said, "Oh, a new book just for me?" And she said, "Yeah, because you've read all the books." And I was very excited. And the weekend passed, and then Monday showed up, and Sister Judy came up to me in the playground and said, "Hey, I know you wanted a book about a girl like you who time travels or maybe saves a cat or a mystery, an international mystery, but I couldn't find a book about a girl like you." And what she meant by that was a girl who's Mexican-American, a Latina heritage like me. And she seemed really sad about it. And I didn't want her to be sad about it because I was just so grateful that she went out to find a book like that. And she handed me a notebook that was blank. And I remember opening it going, "What am I supposed to do with this? You know, it's a blank notebook. This is not the book I asked for." And she said, "I think you're going to have to write the stories you want to tell." And from that moment on, I used that notebook to start writing my own little stories about girls like me. Very much girls like the Raquel doll that I just wrote for American Girl. Girls who are very feisty, getting into adventure. Sometimes they have friendship drama. Sometimes they don't. Everything's going great. Just stories. Just the kind of stories that I wanted to read, inspired by the books that I read. So that kind of then turned me from a reader into a writer at that very young age. And even though I didn't know any published authors, no author had ever visited my school. No one in my family was a published author. I didn't know really how to become an author. As I grew older and hit middle school and then high school, all of my teachers were telling me that I had to study English, that I had to study creative writing, that you had to go to college. And so I did all those things. I became a newspaper reporter for my school paper. I kept up with my readings. I tried to improve my creative writing by studying poetry. That led into college. And there in college, I had great professors and decided to become a creative writing major. And then after college, it all just bloomed for me. I just kind of like started submitting things, writing, and I became the writer that I dreamed about.
I love that. That's such a sweet little story. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you.
So how did you find your way to writing for American Girl?
Yeah, that was totally, at that point in my life, I'd already published, I believe, 4 books on my own with Scholastic. And out of the blue, American Girl reached out to me via email. Like, they didn't even write my agent or my publisher. They wrote directly to me. And this was back in 2010. 19, I want to say. This is the Maritza doll. This is the World by Us series that American Girl was putting out, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And Maritza was one of the 3 dolls introduced that year as part of that series. They said that they loved my book, Letty Out Loud, which had just come out a year or so before. And they asked me, would I be interested in working with them on a doll as part of this World by Us series? They shared the kind of like the idea behind the threesome, the whole series. And they said they would love me to write the Latina doll, Maritza Orchoa. And of course, she didn't have that name at the time. She was unnamed at that time. That name came later in the process. But they said, you can name her, you can have her base, they have a few conditions. And I just was like, as a writer, I didn't even know that could happen. I didn't know like Disney or American Girl or Mattel could reach out to other authors and say, hey, we have an idea for a story, and seek out authors to write those books. I didn't know that world even existed. So this was kind of brand new to me. And I was super excited about it because I knew about American Girl dolls. My nieces were crazy about Samantha Parkington and Josefina. When I grew up, I didn't have those dolls, but my nieces did. And I knew how important it was to them to even go to that Kansas City store that used to be there over in Overland Park, and how important it was to them to go there, pick out a new doll, have their little tea parties. It was really sweet. And I just thought, I have to jump at this opportunity. This is my chance. American Girl has given me a chance to introduce a new Latina character, a new Latina doll. They hadn't had one since Josefina. And then I think there was one more, Miriam Luna, I want to say, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Marisol.
Yeah, Marisol. Thank you. Yes. And so I was just super excited about it. They also had another one, but I forget her name as well, the astronaut one. Do you remember that one?
Oh, Luciana. Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
So, but this one was going to have a storyline of immigration, which was very a hot topic at the point. It's still a hot topic.
Yes.
We're still discussing immigration. And so I thought, well, I would love to tackle that. I would love to tackle that with American Girl. So that's how it happened. It was all a very simple email, reaching out to me because they had been familiar with one of my former books. And I'm so happy they did.
That is so amazing. Oh my goodness, I love that. Before you started writing for American Girl, I remember reading Gabby Lost and Found, which was a Mark Twain nominee one year when I was, I believe, in elementary school. So that's how I realized. And then I put 2 and 2 together when you started writing for American Girl. And I was like, wait, hold on. I kind of know these authors. This is so cool. I love this.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Gabby Lost and Found was my first novel. It was my debut novel. And it had, oh my gosh, it went through so many rejections before it was finally picked up by Scholastic. Really? I always tell that story. I know when I talk about my writing career, I kind of make it seem like, oh, it was easy. I just decided one day to write a book. No, so many authors go through rejection. And my first book, Gabby Lost and Found, which I really believed in and loved, it was exactly the kind of book I wanted to read when I was 9 years old. A girl who helps save animals at an animal shelter. That's just awesome. Yeah. So, and it was rejected so many times. And I remember when it finally got published by Scholastic, how grateful I was to finally have my dreams come true, but with a book that I really felt like was special. And And I think writing Gabby made me a better writer for writing Maritza's story later on, which dealt with immigration. And then even with Raquel, just sort of those characters that you're just kind of rooting for, right? You're cheering on and you get invested in their lives. And I think Gabby definitely, without Gabby, I wouldn't have had my foot in the door to write Maritza or even Raquel.
So what excites you the most about writing for American Girl? American Girl is a brand, like you said, that means so much to people. Do you ever get a little bit kind of nervous about that? Or I guess just what excites you the most about writing for him?
So many things. Like you said before, it's just iconic, right? American Girl. And it means so much to so many people. For example, I recently did a book signing for Raquel Saves the Wedding at a Chicago store and a Dallas store, which are beautiful stores. If you have not gone, you should make a trip. It's amazing. Beautiful stores with beautiful staff of young women mostly who are just so happy to help you. And I had so many women come up to my table with their daughters saying that I read Samantha as a child and now my daughter gets to read Raquel. And they would just literally in tears. I had a father come up to me and said he was buying a doll for his daughter. She did not know it was going to be a surprise for Christmas. And he said, like, we've never been able to buy an American Girl doll for her before, but we've been saving up and we're going to buy her the whole set. We're going to buy her the doll, the clothes, as many accessories as they could. And we're going to surprise her this year for Christmas because she's been doing really well in school and just being a great daughter. And he had tears in his eyes, a grown man, a father. And you just see how much it means to them. And so I don't take it lightly. I carry that love that they have, what it means to give this to a child or to buy it for their child. I take that very to heart, you know? So I never want to dishonor that. The other point is like, does it make me nervous? Yes, it did. Because when I first was asked about writing Maritza's story, one of the first things they said was like, we want her to be a descendant of Samantha Parkington. This is whoa moment because Samantha Parkington was one of the original 3 American Girl dolls. She's legendary. She was a very kind character, a very uplifting character. She had so much story and I didn't want to get it wrong. I wanted to honor everyone who loves Samantha. I fell in love with Samantha. I had never read all of Samantha's books before, but American Girl, you know, they do so much research and they wanted to make sure I felt comfortable. Even though it was Raquel's story, they were like, you know, we want to send you some Samantha books so you can really get a sense of who her great-great-grandma was. Every book I read, I just loved Samantha as a character. Like, if she was a human being, she'd be my friend. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, she'd be someone that would be my friend. And I just loved her storyline. I loved how she's just this young girl growing up at this time where like women couldn't even vote in the country, yet she's got very strong opinions, you know? Mm-hmm. And her grandmary is trying to raise her to be a nice young lady, you know, but Samantha kind of rebels against that a couple of times. She's kind of like, you know, I want to ride a bike. I want to wear little trousers and I want to speak up for women's right to vote and speak up for children working in factories. They shouldn't be working in factories and talking about education for all children and teach kids all to read. These are all issues that we could still talk about today, right?
Yeah.
And Samantha was just ahead of her time and really on it. And just, I really wanted to infuse Raquel's story with a lot of that same sort of, what do you call it? Assertiveness, spunkiness, and just being true to her ancestor, Samantha Parkington. So that part made me nervous. I just wanted to get her right. The last thing I wanted was Samantha Parkington fans to be like, I don't like the way you wrote this, you know.
Yeah.
But so far, it's all been positive. So I'm very grateful for that.
I will say, like, I haven't had time to finish the book yet completely of Raquel Saves the Wedding.
Right.
But it is so well done. It's so written beautifully. Like,
Thank
Samantha is very much there. Like, it is, like, you could tell that Raquel is definitely a descendant of Samantha. Just so well done.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you.
So what advice would you give to someone who wants to become an author?
Yes. Well, I applaud anyone who wants to be an author. And I think the reason they want to be an author is because they must have a story to tell, right? Mm-hmm. Something's in their head, whether it's their own story or something from their imagination. And they want to put it down on paper and they want to share it with the world, right? So I love that and I applaud that. And if you want to be an author, you know, one of the first things I suggest is just keep writing, practice your craft every day. One of the best ways to become a writer and a better writer every day is to read books. And to adventure outside your regular genre of your type of book. Like maybe let's say you're just only reading about dragons. That's great. But try a mystery novel one day or try a book about like Raquel, something, you know, kind of contemporary and fun and about real life. Try something different. So don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone of whatever that genre is because it makes you a better writer. My other advice is to share your writing with other people. I know it can be scary. It was scary for me too. The feedback. But if you have some good trusted friends or other people who want to be writers, join a group, a club, try to get yourself connected into a community of other writers who encourage you and motivate you to keep going after your dream to be an author. And then the other one is just to write that book. I meet so many people who tell me, well, I have an idea for a book. I have an idea. There's a story in my head. And like, have you started writing it down? No, it's just in my head right now. I'm not sure anyone would buy it right now. Who cares if anyone buys it? Get that story down on paper. Start getting into a writing routine. Every morning I wake up at 7:30, I make my coffee and I sit at my computer and I start working away, typing away at whatever my current project is. And I do this till about 12 and then I have a snack. Maybe I go for a walk. Then I get back onto my schedule. Just start. And if you're working and writing is not your full-time job, for a lot of people, it's not. For me, it wasn't for a long time. I had to balance it with a real full-time job. Now I'm a full-time author. I used to save time in the evenings and on the weekends where I would just tell my family and all my friends, I can't be available for you because I'm going to write for 2 hours. I'm going to write for 2 hours. You'll start seeing that 2 hours grow into 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. It'll attach itself to you. That story will assert itself and you will not be able to let it go until you finish it. So believe in that process and just get that story down.
I love that. That's so inspiring.
Thank
And,
you.
like you mentioned at the bit, kind of towards the end about kind of that work-life balance. I just really find that really inspiring how you have that work-life balance, because I am on book talk sometimes about behind the scenes of some authors and their writing stuff. And I feel like that is so kind of holding yourself accountable, and it takes a lot of strength to do that.
That's a great word, accountable. I think that's the word. It's absolutely right. Work balance is you have to keep yourself accountable. You have to choose and prioritize what's most important to you. And if writing that story is important to you, I'm not saying you should put it in front of friends and family. Believe me, I did for that first book, my first debut novel, in order just to get it done. It's worth it in the end. And if your family and friends love you and support you, then they will understand why you can't make that birthday party this weekend, or why you'll show up to that birthday party, but you're going to be a little hour late because you just want to make sure you finish your writing. Those people are the ones who support you and will encourage you. And when they see you, they'll say, how's the book going? How far are you? And those are the people you want to keep in your life, those who encourage you.
I agree. There's nothing quite like supportive friends, supportive family members. That is what everybody needs. Find yourself a group of supportive people.
Absolutely. Find yourself those people, and they are out there. They really are. They really are.
So kind of backing up a little bit, you mentioned working on projects. If you can share, are there any upcoming projects that you're excited about?
I am. I'm always excited about my projects. There's a book I have coming out in May 5th. It comes out, and it's my new project. It's a mystery novel. I hope you like mysteries. It's for kids. It's a middle grade novel, which means all my novels are middle grade novels so far, which is that age group between 8 all the way to 12 years. But I really say anyone can read it. It's really 12 plus, right? It's 8 plus. Yes. Anyone over the age of 8, it's appropriate for. You could be a grown woman and read Raquel Saves the Wedding. And it's certainly the same for this new book. It's The Mystery of the Stolen World Cup Trophy. There it is. I don't know if you've seen it. There you go. Yes. I'm showing the cover, by the way, to those who can't see it.
It looks very pretty.
Thank you. Your book covers are so much fun. I cannot take any credit for them. There's a whole group of artists and illustrators who do all that wonderful design work. But this is my mystery novel about the World Cup that comes out right before the big FIFA Men's World Cup here in North America, which, being from Missouri, the Kansas City is going to get to host 6 games.
Yeah. It's so exciting.
I know. And like today on the news, they were talking about how the England team was going to make their base camp in Kansas City.
Oh my
Argentina was going to make Kansas City their base camp in Kansas City. And now the Netherlands team has chosen our city to be their base camp as well. I mean, they're going to be here for the whole World Cup, training, practicing, staying here. So that's pretty remarkable and good for Kansas City, I think, and Missouri. Well, back to the book, though. In my book, my middle grade, my little protagonist is Diaz Espada, and he is a 12-year-old kid who loves to solve mysteries. His mom, who was a librarian, sort of ingrained him with a love for mystery solving and Agatha Christie and Nancy Drew and Sherlock Holmes. But his dad really has pressured him to be a soccer player. And he loves soccer too. And one night, both those passions collide. One night he's invited to a big Miami exclusive VIP party for the World Cup, and the famous FIFA World Cup trophy goes missing. And so Diaz, using his knowledge for soccer, using his love and passion for mystery solving, puts it together and has to find this trophy. And the thief, in basically pretty much 6 hours, 24 hours, overnight, he has to find this trophy before it's gone for good. And it's inspired by a true story because the FIFA World Cup trophy, before it was a FIFA World Cup trophy, was a trophy called the Jules Rimet, which was a French name. And it had gone missing twice in its history. It's been stolen twice. I kid you not. It was stolen first in England in 1966, and a cute little dog named Pickles found it. The robbers had wrapped the trophy up in newspaper after FIFA refused to pay the ransom, threw it out the window of a car. It landed in a garden, and the next day, Pickles, a black and white puppy, was going for its morning walk and discovered the trophy. Can you believe it? It's a true story. A dog named Pickles in England
That is crazy.
found that trophy. I love that story. That alone deserves 100 books about.
Yes, yes.
And then later on, when it was given, the trophy was given to Brazil for winning the World Cup 3 times. They put it on display in Rio de Janeiro. Some thieves broke in the night, subdued the guards, stole the trophy, and the trophy has never been found again. So based on this storied history of the trophy, I decided, well, what if this trophy goes missing while it's in Miami in the United States? And what if my young sleuth has to find it? So that's just where the inspiration for the story came from. And I'm super excited about it. I learned more about soccer than I ever thought I would. And it was super fun because if you recall, Maritza was a soccer player. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was like the whole thing with Maritza was that her dream was someday to play for the U.S. national women's team and win the World Cup. And so it was kind of fun to bring that soccer knowledge that I'd gained during that book into this book.
I love that. That's so cool. If you don't mind me asking, where do you get your ideas for your books?
Gosh, they just come from everywhere. I mean, you could be driving down the street, you know, like Gabby Lost and Found. You mentioned Gabby Lost and Found in my first book. That book came from a little girl I saw walking on the street with her cat on a leash. They were dressed the same. She had the cat in a cute little pink tutu. She had a pink tutu on and a t-shirt. And they were just walking, pacing. You never see cats on leashes. But you never see people walking cats. I mean, there's lots of dog walking, but you know, cats they're very prickly animal. They're not going to let you put them on a leash and walk them.
Yes.
But this girl did. And I just said, how cute and sweet is that? And I just kind of spurned and kind of propelled my story about a girl who really loves animals and cats and dogs and maybe decides to save one from the animal shelter. So that's where that came from. And a lot of times I'll just read something in the news or see something in a story and it'll make me just want to explore it a little more.
I love that. That's so inspiring. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, we're going to discuss what it's like to be writing books for American Girl, kind of more in depth, and some behind-the-scenes details of Raquel and Maritza's books.
Yes.
So what does the writing process look like when writing books for either one of these characters?
For both books, it was pretty much the same. Once you're signed on to write the book, contracts have been signed and all that good stuff. It starts out with a big Zoom session, sort of a brainstorming session. And this is the session where they kind of tell you some obligations, or not obligations, they say requirements that they require. For example, like Maritza, they wanted her based out of Washington, D.C. And they specifically wanted her setting to be Washington, D.C., because the other two characters were going to be based in Washington, D.C. So you remember, I think it was
McKenna and Yvette, I believe.
That's right. So, and at some point in the books, all of the three were going to meet, right? So they had to all be in the similar city. Now, I could choose whatever community I wanted, but they said it has to be Washington, D.C. So they have a few sort of requirements that they want. And they wanted her to be, for sure Latina. That's why they brought me on, so I could, as a Latina, share my lived experiences. And then two, I think one of the other, they wanted it to deal with immigration and the very real immigration sort of policy and situation we find ourselves in as a country. And so those were really the only three requirements. So once we kind of get those out of the way, we kind of just start brainstorming, like, what does Raquel like to do? And I'm the one that kind of mentioned soccer. And the design team and the marketing kind of chime in and say, yes, soccer is very popular. They have their own sort of, months of research that they've done even before I'm brought into the game, right? Even to the project. They've already done their focus groups. They've already done sort of their ideas about what the doll would be like. And so they immediately say, like, yes, we want her to have a dog. We want her to be a soccer player. We love that idea. And, this is her storyline. And so from there, it just kind of grows. And then I have the freedom to write the story and even suggest names. And I think I threw out like 20 to 30 names for her, but those names have to be trademarked. So it's a very long process. So I think for a long time in the case with Raquel, I was just calling her Little Sammy. We were all just calling her Little Sammy after Samantha, because we didn't know what her name was going to be. And the same thing with Maritza. I think we were just kind of calling her something else until we knew what her name was going to be. And then I'm writing. I've got an editor with me. One of the things I love about working with American Dolls is that they have experts that they bring in. For example, with Raquel, they had an expert on adoption. They had an expert on Latina girls, identity of Latina girls. They had an expert who knew all about dolphin rescue, who was a veterinarian, a real person who actually goes out, a marine biologist that goes out and saves dolphins. This is like her job. And I get to send my chapters to them, and they get to review the scenes that relate to their field of expertise, and they can provide feedback. So like in the case with Maritza, we had someone who was an immigration lawyer to make sure that everything in that book was factual and the right way of saying things. And I love it. I know some authors would probably be like, oh, I don't want someone checking my work. But for me, it made me feel very safe to know that I was getting this information right. And in the case with Raquel, with so much historical background with her great grandmother, Samantha Parkington, we had all of these American Girls editors and staff who'd worked on Samantha Parkington, who knew her story like the back of her hand. So whenever I was kind of like, would she write like this? If she wrote in her diary, would she say this? And they were all there to be like, yes or no, or let me tweak this a little bit to sound more like Samantha. Yeah. Like, how could you not feel safe? Like, I knew I was going to get her right and that story right with so much expertise behind me. And I just really love that part of American Girl Dolls, that you can count on that information being vetted, not only by an author or an editor, but by an expert in that field.
That's one thing that I always admired about American Girl. I mean, they talked about it kind of behind the scenes in books and different things like that. And I believe they even mention it in their websites on the page about their books. But that is just something that I just, like I said, just truly admire, because I don't think that there's any other toy brand out there that puts in the effort like they do when they are providing these educational materials or they're creating these dolls and their stories. Like, there's just nothing out there that compares to them.
No, and it's just such a great way. Like, some of these dolls, it's just a great way and fun way to learn about history.
Yes.
American history even. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And like such a fun way through the eyes of a young girl. Like, I can't think of a better way to learn about history and be introduced to history. And to know that you've got real historians behind it makes it even better.
Yes. Plus, it's accurate. You're not going to grow up thinking one thing and then, oh, culture shock, like, just throwing like High School Musical out, like nobody's in high school,
That is so true. No, good point. Absolutely.
So what was it like stepping into the role of, I know you kind of talked about this, of writing this year's Girl of the Year. Did that come with any social pressure or excitement?
Oh, mostly excitement. The only pressure was to get Samantha Parkington's story right. Yeah. I remember when Raquel came out and the book came out, the diary comes with the doll, the diary of Raquel, and it mentions that Samantha Parkington ended up becoming an educator and opening a school just for girls. And I try not to get caught up in all the fanfare and read all the reviews, but I did notice that a lot of American Girl doll collectors and people who knew Samantha Parkington were all very excited about this. Like they gave their thumbs up in approval, like she becomes a teacher. She starts a school for girls. And I thought, yes, I did that right. I nailed that, you know? And also that like her family would become sort of like this, you know, you see Grandma Meg and the family, and you see that they're very kind of open-minded. They're not, you can see Samantha in them, that they've become kind of like these global citizens. You know what I mean? Like they're very worldly, they're very educated, and they care about people, all people. And I just really love that. I mean, like her cousin Harper is like a marine biologist out there saving dolphins and whales. I mean, that's just kind of beautiful, you know, and, you know, her own mom is like, you know, getting out there dancing when Raquel, you know, becomes the DJ and trying to show her family that, you know, it's fun to dance on the beach, you know, which they're not used to. So it's just, it was mostly excitement, but there was a little bit of, you know, anxiety or a little nervousness about how I was going to portray Samantha, you know, because a lot of us don't know what went on with Samantha after the books. And so it was kind of fun to imagine like that Samantha would grow up to become this amazing human being, that education would always be very important to her, particularly for girls' education, because at that time it wasn't necessary to put girls in school. And a lot of girls were forced into like, you know, being maids or servants or something, or work in factories and not even taught to read. And this was very important to Samantha, that this was, you know, stopped, and that all kids were allowed to read and become educated.
Backing up a little bit, you mentioned, you know, writing about important topics like immigration. How do you balance tackling such serious topics while keeping the story accessible and hopeful for young readers?
Gosh, that is the trick, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when you have a strong character like Raquel, you just kind of let them lead the way. And I know people will be like, well, what does that mean? You know, but when you're an author, you kind of get a sense of like your character and how they would approach a situation. And to me, Raquel, or even Maritza in the case of immigration, or Raquel dealing with, you know, her cousins and, you know, the adoption issue going on, trying to be helpful, but not showing where exactly she can help. You know, they just kind of step forward and assert themselves. Like they're not going to go down this spiral of doom. They're going to try to be like, how can I help? You know, that's their first question. It's like, what do you need and how can I help you? And from there, solutions happen, you know, gutsy moves happen, big, bold actions happen, you know, and I love that about these characters. And the other way I tackle it is just getting the information correct. And that goes back to those experts. Who always have my back because of American Girl dolls. You know, they have my back as well. As a writer, that feels really good. I know if I'm going to get into too touchy or too sensitive of a subject, they will rein me back in, reel me back out, or they'll say, how about if we handle it this way? Because this would be the better way for this young readership to handle this kind of information. With immigration, that's a very scary topic for a lot of kids today. So you want to be very sensitive about it, but you want to be honest. And as an author, I think all authors can agree, like the one thing we always strive for is just being truthful. Is our portrayal of a character truthful? Is the story truthful? Does it feel real to the reader? And having those experts and just being sensitive to the topic is important.
I think American Girl does such a good job, and you did such a good job in the books too.
Thank you.
You know, being honest, like you mentioned, but also hopeful in a way. Yeah,
absolutely.
So what was your favorite scene or moment to write in either Raquel's or Maritza's books?
Gosh, Raquel, just because it's fresh in my mind. There's so many scenes that I really love. I love it when she finds the diary of her great-great-grandma with her cousin Harper, and she's just kind of reading through it. And I love that moment because there's a lot of Easter eggs in that scene. You know, when we're back home in Samantha's home where she grew up with her Grand Mary. And then she goes up and she finds a veil, a wedding veil. She's not quite sure what it is. And then she also finds the diary and she starts reading it and it intrigues her. She wants to learn more about her great-great-grandma and that part of her family's history. So I think I love that scene the most. It was certainly super fun to write. other scene, I think I love the whole scene with the whole dolphin watching where like Harper's like, hey, you better not scare these dolphins away. Like, like at first I thought that scene was a little aggressive. And the way they put it in the book with the graphic designer is like, hey, you, I'm going to support you. It's like, whoa, Harper. But I love it that in that scene also, Raquel and her cousin Sloane share a little smile together. When they see Harper like really sticking up for those dolphins and telling that other party boat like to back away, or she's going to report them. These two little girls share like this little smile between them of like, yeah, that's in our family blood. That sort of assertiveness is what our women are about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I know it's just a very little small part, but like I remember that scene and I loved writing that scene. What else? And Raquel trying to go back and remember, there were so many sweet scenes between Maritza, and Lead With Your Heart between her and Violetta. And then also with Yvette and, McKenna. I'm trying to remember of all those scenes, which was my favorite. Like, I love the scene where Violetta really opens up to Maritza and tells her what's going on with her family. And Maritza for the first time realizes like, my friend is on the edge of a cliff right now and ready to fall over, her whole family. And we should use soccer as a way to speak out in the only way we can. And I love that whole scene where kind of like Yvette and Michaela are all helping her. I just love all of that. I just love anything when girls are just like a squad and they come together to solve a problem. And I just think that's really super fun to write. But I really love those kind of sweet, delicate moments between like with Sloane and Raquel or with Maritza and her friend Violetta. I really love those kind of little sweet moments.
Was there any of the parts of the stories, any other stories that especially felt personal to you?
The Maritza story did in many ways because my family's Mexican American and I used to be a desk partner when I was a kid. And a desk partner is like when newly arrived children come from countries like Mexico or Guatemala, Honduras. I could because I'm bilingual, mostly bilingual, I could serve as their desk partner. So I could tell them like where the bathroom was. I tell them, okay, take out this book. I would help them get adjusted into the school. I used that same experience, that lived experience with my book, Let It Out Loud and Gabby Lost and Found. That's why that subject's very sensitive to me and a part of my life. And so I remember those kids that would come from another country into a new world where they didn't speak the language. They weren't really quite sure where, what the schools were like here. A lot of times I remember the kids telling me like, oh, we don't even have libraries in our school. You mean I can just take a book off the shelf and take it home and read it? Yes, you can. And that was one of the things I used to tell them, like, no, you can touch the books. You can pull the books out and read them. And yes, you can take them home to read. I mean, there might be a limitation. I think me growing up, there were 5 books we could take home at one time. But I remember just kind of teaching them a different culture, a different way of living, and their vulnerability and they're being kind of scared and nervous because of what they are coming from and being able to be like their guide for that school year. Like to make them feel a little at home, like someone could speak their language and someone could understand them. I think that's the part of me that, it comes out even in Raquel and comes out and definitely in Maritza's story.
What conversations do you hope these books spark between kids, families, adults even, classrooms?
I hope the parents and the kids read them together. I think that's always a fun time. And like when I was at those American Girl stores, a lot of the moms would tell me, yeah, I'm reading this book with my kid and we're both loving it. So I love it when I know parents are super busy today, but finding that little time to read with your kid or read the same book, they're reading a book, go ahead and read it on your own time. So what they're reading, you can ask them questions about it. I love that idea. And it really is a gift to you to have a few minutes to read. Oh my God, it does so much for your soul. I really believe that. And then also, as far as messages for all my books, Raquel, Maritza, Let It Out Loud, Gabby, all those other books we've mentioned today, I just hope kids walk away from the books wanting to read more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it was enough of a book that it made them go, I love that book. where can I get more books like this? And then they march into their school library, or they march into their local Barnes and Noble or whatever bookstore they have in their city. And they want to find more books to read. Like that, it becomes that they want to become a lifelong reader, and that reading has an important and special place in their lives. That's my ultimate goal as a kid lit author. And so if they walk away with that, I have done my job. Life is good. Yay.
I love that. It's so inspiring. Alrighty, everyone, we have reached the end of this episode. I am super duper sad it's the end. I really enjoyed my conversation with Angela today. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. I feel like I've learned so much, not only about Angela, but more about Raquel and Maritza. And I'm really sitting here kind of reflecting about how meaningful American Girl books truly are and how important they are for any age to read them and pick them up. I want to thank Angela so much for coming on my Doll Mom podcast. I really enjoyed today's conversation, and I'm super duper grateful to have the opportunity to get to talk to her and for her to come on the podcast. This was such like a dream come true episode for me to make. So y'all, if you have not gone and followed Angela on all the platforms on her social medias, I will link them down below. What are you doing? You need to go follow her. Go show some love. # Raquel forever. Not only does she post about her upcoming books releases, but she also talks about and announces her upcoming book signings and events that she's attending. So if you are interested in meeting Angela in person, definitely go check her out. In addition to that, I am super duper excited to announce that we are going to be doing a giveaway over 2 signed copies of Raquel's latest book, Raquel Saves the Wedding. So you want to make sure that you're following at Dollies and Rainbows at Doll Mom Podcast on Instagram so you can get the details of that coming in the upcoming days. I am super duper excited over that. I've never done a giveaway that's kind of podcast related before. So this is something new and I'm super duper excited about it. So you want to make sure that you're following. My name is Mal. I am at Doll Mom Podcast on all social media platforms. Make sure to follow my podcast on social media at Doll Mom Podcast on Instagram, Facebook Threads, and TikTok. I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have an amazing day until we talk next. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.